to represent the RCMP, that could create a conflict of interest. If, for example, a conflict arises where two sections of the same agency are facing difficulty with another group represented by the same bargaining agent. So this is where we need to have the specialization that I referred to in my remarks.
Statements by members, déclaration des députés. L'honorable député.
The Honourable Member for Repentigny. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Bloc Québécois has always been strong on social justice and especially in helping those who need it most. 15 years ago, we demonstrated in committee the need to automatically register people for the guaranteed income supplement because people needed it and had a right to it. And it turned out that public servants knew about the problems since 1993. Former Bloc critics, Marcel Gagnon, Abbé Gravel, Christiane Gagnon, all went around Quebec looking for those who were affected. We have pushed their issue in the House year after year. So after 25 years, 8 governments, 3 bills, and 2 unanimous motions in the National Assembly, we are happy to hear that the government is ready to listen. We are eager to see this happen.
Good.
This year, the House of Commons kept former parliamentarian Peter Stauffer's tradition alive, and on May 18th, the 17th annual MP Page Soccer Friendly took place. A grizzled band of misfit members from both sides of this House faced off against a spry, young, and upstart team of Pages in a hard-fought battle. Commoners FC started off strong and led most of the game, but with depth on the Pages side, we were outnumbered, at times out-hustled, and certainly out-cheered. Our early offense was not quite enough, and at the final whistle, the score stood at a 4-4 draw. Fitting it was to see both sides share in the glory that evening, as we are all winners, but for the tremendous contribution of the Pages. I thank these young leaders who work tirelessly each and every day to ensure that our work here runs effectively, and to the Pages I say, your personal contributions are a valuable resource to this chamber and a lasting testament to Canada's rich democracy. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you. The Honourable Member for Beauport-Limoilou. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Summer is coming, and in Quebec City, this means the start of outdoor activities in my riding of Beauport-Limoilou. Among the most popular is the fishing festival on the Beauport River, which will have its 23rd incarnation on June the 4th. This is a great family event, and it is free. People can fish for some of the 4,500 trout that have been stocked into the river by the local education group. This is a province-wide activity, so that is why people don't even need a license to fish. I would invite everyone to take pictures, take part, and eat hot dogs on the Beauport River. I will definitely be there.
Elmer.
The Honourable Member for Hull-Elmer. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm honored to speak today to highlight the second year of a baseball team, the Champions of Ottawa.
The Can-Am League that has teams in Quebec City, New Jersey, Sussex County, Rockland, New York, and Trois-Rivières. Last year, they sold just over 115,000 tickets and welcomed over 150,000 fans to the ballpark for their inaugural season that saw them compete for the playoff spot right up until the last games of the season. The local star is Sébastien Boucher, who is from Gatineau, Quebec. The team manager is Hal Lanier, who played for the San Francisco Giants and the New York Yankees. The Ottawa champions will play 54 home games this summer. In mid-June, they will welcome the Cuban national team, and in late June, a sister league team, the Shikoku Island All-Stars from Japan. And they'll come and play in Ottawa to play against the champions. Next year, as part of the 2017 Canada celebrations, the champions will host a Can-Am All-Star game.
I want to encourage all baseball lovers in Ottawa-Gatineau to come out and support them. The Honourable Member for Longueuil-Saint-Hubert. Mr. Speaker, I want to point how important it is for our young people to tell their stories in any way they can. On Thursday, I was at the Short Film Festival in Longueuil, just a few streets away from the Gentilly Primary School that was attended in the 1990s by a boy named Xavier Dolan. It is with great pride that I speak on behalf of the people of Longueuil and Saint-Hubert, and I'm sure everyone here, to highlight his winning of the Grand Prize in Cannes for his most recent film. I would call on everyone, including our Minister of Heritage, to achieve our collective challenge to support our cultural industries and to help our young filmmakers.
Mr. Speaker, I'm excited about a new program which is having a positive impact on the youth with a mobility disability in my riding and throughout New Brunswick. The Transition New Brunswick program, created by Ability New Brunswick, is helping youth with a mobility disability access training, post-secondary education, and employment. Mr. Speaker, New Brunswick has the second highest rate of disability in Canada at 16.4% of the population. Persons with a disability in Canada have a much lower education and labour market participation rates than the general population. Students with a disability are more likely to leave high school without a diploma compared to students with a disability, and only 13.2% of persons with a disability have a university degree. Ability New Brunswick is finding creative solutions to barriers like housing, transportation, and accessibility, and helping youth throughout New Brunswick reach their full abilities and potential. Puisque la semaine de sensibilisation.
As today marks the start of Disability Awareness Week in New Brunswick, I want to take this opportunity to thank New Brunswick disability organizations, their staff and volunteers, for all that they do to advocate.
Nicola.
Mr. Speaker, everyone loves the underdog, and in my riding, that underdog was the West Kelowna Warriors. People said they would never make it past the Penticton Vs. Well, they did. Then naysayers say they couldn't win the BC Junior Hockey League champions. They did again, Mr. Speaker. Few picked them to win the Western Canada Cup. They won not only that, they found a way to win the National Junior Champions RBC Cup. This achievement is much more than about winning hockey games, Mr. Speaker. It's an example of what can happen when a group of young leaders believe in themselves and each other and never give up. Let us celebrate the success of the West Kelowna Warriors, who not only had an amazing season, but showed us all that when you believe, Mr. Speaker, you can achieve.
The Honourable Member for Rivière-des-Mille-Îles. I rise today in the House to celebrate the success of an innovative company in Boisbriand in my riding of Rivière-des-Mille-Îles. On May 19th, His Excellency David Johnston, the Governor General, presented an award for innovation to Kinova, which was founded by Charles de Guire, who is currently the CEO. This prestigious award recognizes the success of the robotic arm called JACO that helps people with reduced upper body movement to have greater autonomy. I would invite people to really reiterate our confidence in the innovation done by Canadians and to congratulate the company on helping people expand the limits of their autonomy, everyone. So I want to thank Kinova on behalf of everyone.
Lakeshore.
Mr. Speaker, I'm honored to rise today to recognize the Congress of Black Women of Canada, first founded in 1973 by Kay Livingstone. In 1985, my local Mississauga and area chapter was formed, and I'm proud to say that over 30 years later, two of the chapter's original founders, Faye Shepmeyer and Madeline Edwards, are still very active today. They are champions of education. They offer annual scholarships, EQAO tutoring, and a summer and March break camp, respectively. Mr. Speaker, these two exceptional Canadian women and their organization are also champions of social housing. This year marks the 20th anniversary of the opening of Camille's Place, an 82-unit apartment complex that the Mississauga chapter actively manages in order to address the social and economic needs of women of the region of Peel. Mr. Speaker, I invite all members to pay tribute to the Congress of Black Women of Canada's Mississauga and area chapter for their incredible work and dedication to our community. Thank you.
The honourable member for Renfrew, Nipissing, Pembroke.
Mr. Speaker, it was an historic moment recently for the flight crew of the 450 Tactical Helicopter Squadron operating one of Canada's new CH-147F Chinook helicopters and responding to the wildfires in Fort McMurray, Alberta. The 450 Tactical Helicopter Squadron's home base is Garrison Petawawa in the heart of the beautiful Upper Ottawa Valley. May 6th marked the first time a CH-147 Chinook helicopter has been deployed in a Canadian domestic humanitarian operation, flying in 8,200 pounds of food, water, and other goods to the Fort McKay First Nation. Chinook helicopters provided much needed strategic lift during the conflict in Afghanistan off the bomb-laden roads. Helicopters save lives. On behalf of the flight crews of the 450 Tactical Helicopter Squadron, 4th Canadian Division Support Base Petawawa, thank you, Canada, for providing the necessary equipment to do the job for either here or at home, or to aid with emergency relief or overseas, whatever the task may be.
Bravo. The honourable member for Malpeque.
Mr. Speaker, today I pay tribute to Stephen McKinnon, a pioneer of ecological farming in PEI, who died suddenly at his home in New Argyll at the untimely age of 53. Stephen was a seventh-generation farmer, farming the land settled by the McKinnon family in 1808. He was passionate about issues affecting the family farm and was unafraid to stand up for what he felt was right. Yet he respected the views of others and enjoyed energetic debates. Stephen was a visionary, being one of the first farmers to farm in an ecological manner as a way to promote environmental stewardship. Active in the National Farmers Union since his teenage days, he served in many roles and at the time of his passing was district director in Prince Edward Island. He will be missed by many in the agriculture sector, environmental organizations, community groups, and of course his family. He leaves behind his greatest love, his daughter Danielle, and other family members. Our condolences.
The honourable member for Whitby.
Mr. Speaker, this weekend is the 150th Brooklyn Spring Fair in my riding of Whitby. What started as a small agricultural community gathering now welcomes more than 30,000 visitors each year. The fair has stayed true to its agricultural roots and fills an important role in our community in connecting youth to the region's farm-focused past and educating them about the vital role of farms and farmers in our community. In recent years, it has further expanded to focus on the importance of conservation and environmental stewardship. None of this would be possible without the hard work and dedication of the Board of Directors and volunteers who work hard year-round to make the fair a success. Your commitment to civic action is an example to us all, and I thank you for all that you do in your community. Whether at the parade, the dunk tank, or the pie-eating contest, I am sure that I will see you at the fair.
The honourable member for Flamborough-Glanbrook.
Mr. Speaker, June begins this week, and so does Scleroderma Awareness Month. What is scleroderma? It's a progressive and chronic connective tissue disorder that can attack internal organs, literally shutting them down one at a time. Other symptoms include weeping ulcers and serious skin deterioration. Mr. Speaker, as many members of this House know, as I've spoken about it before, I watched my mother suffer from scleroderma, and it was heartbreaking. Unfortunately, she's not the only strong woman to be afflicted with scleroderma because the disease overwhelmingly targets women. In fact, almost 80% of sufferers are women. What's alarming is that the incidence of scleroderma is on the rise. However, the good news is that new research on therapeutic measures is making a tangible difference, and we're hopeful for a cure on the horizon. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to recognize Maureen Sauvé, who's been a relentless, passionate, and selfless champion and leader at the national and provincial level with Scleroderma Society. What we need now is more government involvement and funding to help bring home a cure, stem the tide of increase, and assure the women and men suffering from scleroderma that the Government of Canada stands with them this month and every month.
Hear, hear. The honourable member for London North Centre.
Mr. Speaker, I understand you're something of a hockey fan, and therefore it brings me great pleasure to let you know that the London Knights won the 2016 Memorial Cup last night. Yesterday, the Knights defeated the Rouyn-Noranda Huskies in epic fashion to capture a national junior hockey championship. Matthew Tkachuk scored in overtime to secure London its second ever Memorial Cup. This was not your typical championship. It was a display of sporting dominance. The Knights won the Cup with a 4-0 record, outscored opponents 23-8, and with last night's victory won their 17th straight game. Mr. Speaker, the Knights are an extraordinary junior hockey franchise. The Hunter family, led by Dale, Mark, and their father Dick, have transformed this club into one of the top teams in all of junior hockey. With 9,000 fans coming to each home game, hockey in London and the Knights are synonymous. I congratulate the team and the Hunter family. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Essex.
Mr. Speaker, southwestern Ontario is the heart of Canada's auto sector, providing good jobs for tens of thousands of families in our communities. But over the past decade, Canada has lost over 400,000 manufacturing jobs, with over 260,000 of those lost in Ontario. Last month, auto industry leaders from business, labour and academia gathered in Windsor for a policy and solutions forum. They reiterated calls for a national auto strategy that will attract investment, support research and innovation, and sustain good jobs. For years, our auto sector has worked collaboratively and has been united in its call for a national strategy. Our region knows how to work together like no other because we share a vision for a stronger future. Last week in Japan, the Prime Minister promoted auto investment in Canada. But if the Liberal government is serious about supporting Canada's auto sector, they need to say no to the job-killing TPP and implement a national auto strategy. As the elected representative for Essex, I will do everything I can to get the job done.
The honourable member for Edmonton Riverbend.
Mr. Speaker, this past weekend the Conservative Party gathered in Vancouver for our national convention. While many of the pundits predicted a somber affair, Conservatives took the opportunity to look forward. Our convention featured vigorous discussion, questioning of the status quo, and debate over the direction of our party. This convention was nothing short of inspiring. Additionally, our convention this weekend was an open affair, with policy debates and discussions all open to the media. We showed that the Conservative grassroots is alive and well, as more than 3,000 people were on hand to participate. Throughout the weekend, the Conservative Party showed how proud it is to be the party of hardworking Canadians. In opposition, our party is strong. We will continue to work hard every day to make Canada a better place.
We now have to conclude the Moncton Riverview Dieppe.
The honourable member for Moncton Riverview Dieppe. On May 7th, at the Artillerie Le Blanc Centre in Dieppe, New Brunswick, I had the great privilege of attending the Héloïse Awards celebrating artistic excellence in Acadia. This is a multidisciplinary event that pays tribute to those who inspire the vitality of modern Acadia. This event not only celebrates local art and artists, but it's also a showcase for artists and helps them reach and benefit the public with their art. I think that it is the public that is really the true winners. As the member for the riding of Moncton Riverview Dieppe, I'm very pleased to support this project and proud to be part of a government that continues to invest in these kinds of projects that are crucially important to the Francophone and Acadian communities in Greater Moncton.
Questions orales.
Oral questions.
Member for Lac-Saint-Jean.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Democratic Institutions backed down over the weekend on the issue of voting reform. She said there needed to be a conversation among all parties in the House of Commons. We obviously agree, but we think we have to go further. I would encourage the Minister to be more open with Canadians. Will the Prime Minister call a referendum on electoral reform so that all Canadians can give their opinion? A referendum is necessary.
Absolutely committed to ensuring the consultations that we have on a pan-Canadian basis hears from all Canadians on how they want to modernize and improve our electoral system. I encourage the members opposite to participate in that discussion. I haven't heard any ideas or thoughts about how they want to modernize that system yet, but it's important that they put those forward. I really invite all members of the House to engage in that process.
The honourable member for Lac-Saint-Jean.
Must have the opportunity to express their opinion on the electoral reform. This weekend, the Minister of Democratic Institutions said, quote, as far as any changes around democratic reform, we are not going to proceed without any changes unless we have a broad support. We have a good idea for the broad support. Have a referendum.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, let me talk about what we won't do. Last time major democratic changes were introduced, it was by the Conservatives. It was the Fair Elections Act, which disenfranchised many voters. And, Mr. Speaker, there was no consultations that occurred during that process. They didn't engage Canadians. We want to do things differently. We want to make sure that Canadians' voices are heard, that they're given the proper opportunity to be involved in modernizing their system. This was a clear campaign promise we made in the last election. More than 60% of Canadians voted for parties who said they wanted change. We're committed to making that change happen.
Honourable member for Lac-Saint-Jean. Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Democratic Institutions also said that Canadians could rest assured that without their support, no change would be made to our electoral system. Mr. Speaker, Canadians who voted in higher numbers in the last election might want to keep the way things are. Will the Prime Minister admit that the best way to know what Canadians want is to call a referendum on how we vote? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
We're absolutely committed to ensuring that the support of Canadians is behind the proposals we bring forward. The process that we're going to engage of talking to Canadians from coast to coast, not just about changing our voting system, but looking at electronic voting, looking at the possibility of mandatory voting, recognizing that in a modern age that our electoral systems, like the rest of the world, need to evolve, is something that we're committed to. And I would ask the member opposite to engage constructively in that process, to engage in that dialogue, and work with us to create a better electoral system.
And the member for Regina Capel.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister tried to seize total control of the House of Commons just because he didn't get his own way. Motion number 6 was only withdrawn after a massive backlash, but it's not his only undemocratic attempt to seize control. Motion 5 sets up the committee to alter Canada's electoral system in the Liberals' favour. It gives Liberals a majority on the committee, ensures that the Liberal majority in the House will control the bill, and the final say will be made by the Liberal cabinet. Will they do the right thing and withdraw this motion as well?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, the motion to create the committee is coming forward. There's going to be ample opportunity to hear from each and every member of the House around their ideas to improve and modernize our electoral system. And the reality in the last election is Canadians looked at the problems of the past, looked at the decade that preceded the last election, and said in huge measure that the status quo was not good enough, that we needed to do better. And that's precisely what we're working on. That's precisely what the committee is getting to the heart of, and I encourage members to engage in that process.
For Regina Capel.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister thinks that tracking a topic on Twitter is a better way of consulting Canadians than holding a referendum. Hashtag logical. Their motion gives Liberals on the committee total control of the process to fundamentally change the way Canadians vote. Hashtag that seems fair. We know Liberals don't respect Parliament, and now we can see that they don't respect Canadians either. Hashtag arrogance, hashtag out of touch, hashtag disrespect. Wants widespread consultations, can she finally agree to holding a hashtag referendum?
The Honourable Hashtag Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I hear the hashtags opposite. I hear the member wanting to use different forums. Obviously, look, there are many different ways that people can engage on this issue. There are going to be forums held in nearly every riding. I encourage members to host town halls. I encourage members to engage with their constituents. We're going to have a digital portal where Canadians' voices can be heard. This is going to be a dynamic conversation, as what we said is we're going to ensure that the will of Canadians is behind whatever we put forward. So help us to change the status quo, improve our system, modernize our electoral system, and bring us into the 21st century.
The honourable member for Hochelaga. Mr. Speaker, more and more people are concerned about the constitutionality of Bill C-14 on medical assistance in dying. On the weekend, Liberal Party members weighed in, including former Prime Minister Paul Martin and former party leader Bob Rae. On such an important matter, the government can't get it wrong, and it's not too late. C-14 could be amended tonight. Will the Liberals work with the opposition to ensure that C-14 respects both the Charter and the Supreme Court's opinion?
Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank the colleague across the way for the question. We are committed to moving forward with Bill C-14 and have engaged very broadly on this really complex and deeply personal issue. We have a deadline of June the 6th to meet that has been directed by the Supreme Court of Canada, and we are committed to having in place, it's our responsibility as parliamentarians to have in place a legal framework in this country that ensures we find the right balance between personal autonomy, protection of the vulnerable, and ensuring that there is access in this country.
The honourable member for Hochelaga. Mr. Speaker, they have to stop giving out partial information. There's no urgency. The professional orders are willing and ready. They've put instructions in place to protect the vulnerable. This has to be got right. Currently, the government is stubbornly insisting on pushing through legislation that many experts consider unconstitutional. We're talking about charter-protected rights. The government knows full well that this bill will be challenged if it's not amended. So what are they waiting for? Why won't they work with the opposition to make this charter-proof? The Honourable Minister of Justice.
Mr. Speaker, we are committed to working with all parliamentarians and have done so on this piece of legislation as we move forward. We have the utmost respect for the Supreme Court of Canada and ensuring that we do everything possible to meet the deadline of June the 6th. We have the utmost confidence that this is the best public policy approach to medical assistance in dying in this country right now, and we are going to ensure that we can move forward with that legal framework to provide access as well as the protection of the vulnerable.
For Victoria.
But the problem with the minister's response, Mr. Speaker, is that the Alberta Court of Appeal, the Canadian Bar Association, Le Barreau du Québec, constitutional experts, and now even former Prime Minister Martin all agree. Bill C-14 in its present form is likely not constitutional. Even if this bill is passed next week, it'll be tied up in legal challenges for years to come and costly, exhausting court battles for suffering Canadians who just want to see their legal rights vindicated. Why won't this government do the right thing and work with us to get the bill right the first time?
Minister of Justice.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my honourable colleague across the way for the question. We are committed to ensuring that we have in place by the Supreme Court deadline of June the 6th a legal framework for medical assistance in dying in this country. I know that there are an incredible diversity of opinion around this incredibly complex and challenging issue, and as legislators we need to answer the 36 million people that live in this country in terms of putting in place a regime. Again, I am confident that this is the best approach for Canada in terms of medical assistance in dying right now, and it is the first step.
Member for Victoria.
Mr. Speaker, they keep hiding behind the June 6th deadline, as they call it, as an excuse. But now even former Liberal leaders Bob Rae and Paul Martin agree there's nothing to fear. Mr. Speaker, if this bill doesn't pass next week, the Carter decision itself provides the criteria for determining who's eligible, and the provinces are now prepared and have already released guidelines for their physicians. We have the time we need to fix this, so will the government stop ramming through this deeply flawed bill and work with us to get it right?
The Honourable Minister of Health.
Mr. Speaker, this question gives me an opportunity to explain why it's so important that we get a piece of legislation in place at the very soonest possible date. Without legislation in place, healthcare providers will not have the legal framework that they require to proceed. They will be advised to seek legal consult. This will cause serious problems in accessing. Not only that, the Canadian Pharmacists Association have made it clear that there will be no protection for pharmacists to dispense medication. We need to get this legislation in place as soon as possible.
Member for Banff Airdrie.
Well, Mr. Speaker, on electoral reform, the Liberals keep claiming that they're listening to Canadians, but 3/4 of Canadians want a referendum on any changes to their system of democracy. So it seems that Canadians have already spoken. Will the Liberals drop the lip service and actually listen to Canadians and hold a referendum?
Parliamentary Secretary, the Minister of Democratic Institutions.
Speaker, Canadians have spoken. They spoke over 60% voting for parties that said we need to modernize our electoral system. Canadians stood up in the last election and said they needed a system that better reflected their will, that better enfranchised their vote, that gave them a better voice in our democratic process. Mr. Speaker, that's exactly what we're committed to. And I would encourage the member opposite, work with us in this process. Let's improve our democracy. Let's get it done.
Member for Banff Airdrie.
No, Canadians have spoken. 75% of them want a referendum. The Minister of Democratic Institutions claims that a referendum is not the best way to consult Canadians. But at the same time, the Minister is speaking out of the other side of her mouth, saying that she's listening to all Canadians. But how better to know that you have broad-based support of all Canadians than with a referendum? So will the Liberals try to stop pulling the wool over Canadians' eyes and hold a referendum? Yes or no?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, public consultation comes in many forms. The ability to engage Canadians happens in many different ways. We are absolutely committed to making sure that all Canadians' voices are heard in this process. But what we want to do right now, and I would encourage the member to join us in that process, is have a discussion of exactly how we're going to do it. Right now, I don't even know what the member would want a question on. It's important to posit ideas, to have a debate and a discussion about how we can improve our system, and once we get to that point, let's look at the next steps.
Now, member for Richmond Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to remind the Parliamentary Secretary that they only got 39% of the vote, not 60%. Mr. Speaker, for weeks now, the minister has been saying a referendum is not the way to go. But 73% of Canadians are in favor of a referendum. Mr. Speaker, will the Minister of Democratic Institutions and her government finally listen to Canadians and hold a referendum on how we vote instead of constantly sticking their heads in the sand?
Mr. Speaker, we were not the only party to campaign on the idea of changing our electoral system, on modernizing our electoral and democratic institutions. The NDP did, the Green Party did. There were many different parties that posited this idea, and in cumulative total, that reaches more than 60%. But the bigger point here, Mr. Speaker, is there is a historic opportunity to improve the way Canadians interact with their democracy, to empower them and give them a chance to have a stronger voice in this process. I would encourage the member to work with us in that process, to begin that process of debate and ideas, and let's start it right now.
The honourable member for Richmond Arthabaska. Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister said loud and clear that the 2015 election would be the last of its kind, and he closed the door on keeping our first-past-the-post system. However, at this week's Liberal convention, the Minister of Democratic Institutions said the government would abandon its reform if Canadians didn't support it. Mr. Speaker, in order to find out if Canadians support it, why wouldn't the Prime Minister commit to a referendum on such a fundamental issue? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, from the onset, we've been committed to engaging Canadians to ensure that any proposal we bring forward has broad support from the Canadian public. But let's remember the objective we're trying to achieve here. The objective we're trying to achieve is to enfranchise voters, to give them more power, more say, a better spot at the table in our Canadian democratic system. And so I would offer to the members opposite, who clearly are very engaged in this issue, who clearly want to have a discussion about it, let's talk. Let's have an opportunity to look at what the options are to improve our system and get to work on it.
For Lanark, Frontenac, Kingston.
Mr. Speaker, maybe the Parliamentary Secretary can sort out some of the confusion left by his minister this weekend when she contradicted herself by saying, on the one hand, and I quote, "I haven't been persuaded that referendum alone is the best tool we can use in the 21st century." But on the other hand, she said, "We will not proceed with any changes to how Canadians vote without the broad buy-in of the people of this country." So how do you get broad buy-in if you don't actually consult broadly? How do you do this without having a referendum?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, to get broad buy-in, we have to do what frankly hasn't occurred in the past, which is to reach out to Canadians in ridings across the country to have real and genuine conversations around how to improve our democratic institutions, to take this opportunity, really a historic opportunity to move our democracy to a new place where we empower voters to have a stronger say in our system. And in order to do that,
in order to do that, we actually have to talk about options and dialogue and something other than the status quo. And that's what I haven't heard from the members opposite. I haven't heard them positing ideas on how we can improve our system. Please start participating in this debate.
The member for Lana, Frontenac, Kingston.
Mr. Speaker, at some point the Liberals are actually going to have to come forward with some new proposal instead of suggesting that everybody else should do it. And when they do that, we want to have a referendum. Not just we want to have a referendum, 73% of Canadians want to have a referendum. Sooner or later, there will be a proposal from the Liberals saying, here is the new electoral system we suggest. When that happens, will there be a referendum, as 73% of Canadians want, or will they deny Canadians a democratic say in the new
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I realize this may not be something that the member has seen a lot of, and we need to see a lot more of, which is that the ideas brought forward by government are informed by not only broad-based consultations with the public, but also all parties in the House. And it certainly is our desire in this process to have each of the parties participating and help form the modernization of our electoral system. So to get to the point where we have something to talk about, we need them to engage in that dialogue, bring forward their ideas, and move away from just hanging on to the status quo.
The member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. Improv category, we're trying to reform our voting system, but we don't know how. We don't know how long it'll take, how many people, and so on. The minister just said she wouldn't do anything without broad public buy-in. But the only thing that's clear is she doesn't know where they're heading. They dragged their feet for 7 months, and they packed the committee with Liberal members. Is the government going to remedy the situation so that no single party has a majority on the committee? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
It's true. It's true we don't know where this process is going to conclude. The party opposite may already have a system and idea of where it's going to go, but we want to actually engage in a meaningful dialogue that finds middle ground, that finds a best solution. And I imagine that solution should and must evolve as the dialogue and as the input from Canadians take place. If we just simply step forward and said this was the system we wanted, here it is, and we put it to a vote, frankly, that's how things were done. That's not how things should be done. We need to work in an inclusive manner, work together to find the best system.
Christina, Bulkley Valley.
If that were the case, we have to ask, why did Liberals stack Liberal members on the committee picking the new voting system? Details matter, and Liberals have proposed a system in which Liberals can unilaterally change our voting system. On the weekend, the minister said she's looking forward to, I quote, broad support. Now, 2/3 of the House were elected on a promise of electoral reform. Some have accused the minister of damaging the credibility of the process with her platitudes and vague answers to straightforward questions. So we implore the Liberals to answer this one simple question. Are the Liberals actually willing to go it alone and unilaterally change our voting system, or will they require the support of at least one recognized...
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I've had many occasions to talk and work with the member opposite. I know that he's very earnest in his desire to improve our electoral system. I know that he has many ideas he wants to bring forward to this process. Let me tell him that in this process, certainly each and every one of us is going to be given the opportunity to vote on that system. Each and every one of us is going to be given an opportunity to input to it. Each and every one of us has a responsibility to engage our constituents and Canadians on a pan-Canadian basis to make sure their voices are heard. I look forward to working with them on it.
The honourable member for Milton.
Mr. Speaker, on Friday, the Finance Canada confirmed what we always said would happen, that this government took a Conservative surplus and turned it into a Liberal deficit. And we know how this works, Mr. Speaker. They had the best March Madness ever. It was fantastic. So what we want to know, Mr. Speaker, is whether cabinet ministers were actually urged to splurge in order to make sure that the finance minister got the deficit he predicted.
Stop the madness.
The Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the honourable member for her question. As I've been saying in this House for many months, the government before us left us with a deficit. The fiscal monitor this past Friday told us in black and white what is absolutely the case. Due to the economic realities left by the measures from the previous government, we have a deficit from the previous government. Now the question is, what are we going to do moving forward? We're going to invest to make the future rosier than the past for Canadians by focusing on growth.
Member for Milton.
Mr. Speaker, the fiscal monitor confirms the fact that the Liberals inherited a surplus from the Conservative government. It also confirms, though sadly, that just one short month at the very end of the year, they were able to turn that surplus into a deficit. Now, while they preach the gospel of deficit spending, they stand alone because their G7 partners are still stuck on this whole balanced budget thing. So, Mr. Speaker, did the minister engineer this deficit? Is he just proving to Canadians that he can spend it as quickly as we left it for him?
Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, facts matter. The facts are that the fiscal monitor shows us
Order. I'm sure the minister appreciates the applause deeply, but let's wait till he finishes his answer, please. Order. Minister of Finance. Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, as I said, facts matter. I would urge the members on the other side to actually read the fiscal monitor. What they will find is that the government before us left us with a deficit. What they will find is that, as in previous years, revenues go down and expenses go up at the end of the year. This year, revenues went down precipitously because of the measures of the previous government. That's the situation we face ourselves now. We are focused on how we're going to deal with what was left to us by the previous government.
Member for Brantford Brant.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the evidence continues to pile up that this finance minister has a serious problem when it comes to transparency. Page 7 of his own February economic update details how his Liberal spending spree was already well underway last year. Again in March, he burned through billions in 1 month and has driven us into deficit. Why does the finance minister refuse to take responsibility for his own deficits?
Honourable Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I would urge the member to actually go through the fiscal monitor line by line to find out the facts. When you take out the measures that we've put in, what you find is that the previous government left us with a deficit. It is absolutely clear, and it's something that they're going to need to look at and realize. We are going to do what Canadians asked us to do, to deal with what was left to us by the previous government. We're going to invest to make a real difference for Canadians in the future, improving our country through improved growth.
Yes.
The member for Brantford Brant.
Mr. Speaker, the issue here is transparency. The finance minister is cooking the books to suit his reckless political spending and agenda. He was left with a Conservative surplus. He did turn that into a Liberal deficit. The finance minister needs to come clean and show some transparency. Will he tell Canadians exactly how he spent $10 billion on the reckless Liberal schemes in March?
Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I would invite the member opposite to take a look at what's happened over the last number of years in March with the previous government. What happens is, in March, revenues go down.
Order. Let's listen to the answer, please. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
And this year, what happened was what's happened in previous years, only worse. The measures put in place by the previous government led revenues to go down at the end of the year, leaving us with a deficit. We are starting with a deficit left by the previous government, and now we're making efforts to really improve our situation going forward. Canadians expect growth for this generation and for the next generation, and we're going to deliver it.
Member for Edmonton Strathcona.
Mr. Speaker, the Transportation Safety Board is reporting more accidents, runaway trains, and other serious preventable accidents. Yet Transport Canada is delaying tougher measures that could stop not only disasters like Lac-Mégantic, but 500 runaway trains over the past 2 decades. Wow. Transport inspectors and rail workers have called for strengthened controls and stepped up inspection and enforcement. So far, nothing. When will this minister start talking and start taking action to make our rail system safe?
Honourable Minister of Transport.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank my colleague for the question. And yes, we have been taking action. I've been very clear since the beginning that rail safety is my top priority. In fact, I'm very glad that in this last budget, $143 million was put aside over 3 years
for rail safety. And yes, we have taken measures. In fact, her party was present when we announced some of these measures. So we are taking rail safety very seriously. I've said it many times. The measures put in place since Lac Mégantic are a beginning, but they are not sufficient, and we will be doing more for rail safety.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, it's a priority, but when I went to Lake Mégantic with my colleague, the member for Sherbrooke, last week, I can tell you and tell the Minister that people isn't very impressed by the slow pace. It's been 3 years now since the tragedy occurred, and we're still far from having a safe railway network. The Transportation Safety Board has said that there are many problems with trains and that Transport Canada isn't doing enough to improve the safety procedures. Will the Minister finally set aside these words and take some action and ensure that we have in place a safe railway system? The Honourable Minister of Transport. Mr. Speaker, I'll repeat the same in French. I have the greatest of respect for the Transportation Safety Board. We listen to them each time they make a recommendation. As I said, rail safety is my biggest concern. It's a priority for me. We have taken steps and measures already. Have we done enough? No, and we have stated that. There are other measures coming. There is money in the budget to take those steps, and we are going to be dealing with rail safety because it is my #1 priority. The Honourable Member for Thérèse de Blainville. Mr. Speaker, the aerospace sector is one of the most innovative sectors in the country. The industry includes more than 180,000 high-quality jobs in Canada. Bell Helicopter Textron Canada recently announced they would be repatriating assembly activities to Quebec, which will help to keep and create about 100 jobs. Can the Minister of Innovation, Science and Economic Development inform this House of the role that the Government of Canada played in bringing back this assembly line?
The Honourable Minister of Economic Development.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague, the member for Thérèse de Blainville, for his question. I'm very proud of the decision made by Bell Helicopter Textron Canada to repatriate back to Quebec an assembly line for a new model of helicopter. We worked in conjunction with the Government of Quebec to create a positive business environment for the company. This cooperation has made it possible to maintain many jobs and has also helped to create over 100 new jobs. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint-Laurent.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Under the Liberal Party, things happen and they resemble each other. Deficit, deficit, deficit. Last Friday, the Minister of Finance, in his monthly review, stated that the government has racked up a $9 billion deficit. The same department that said last month that the Conservative government had left a $1 billion surplus. We left surpluses and the Liberals are generating deficits. Can the Minister of Finance finally acknowledge what all Canadians know and are suffering from? The Liberal government has completely lost control over public finances. That's the reality. The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, the facts are now clear. With the fiscal review, we know two things that are absolutely clear. Initially, the previous government left us a deficit. That is clearly the situation. As well, we can say that we have a level of growth that is very low because of the measures put in place by the previous government. We are making investments to improve the situation for the future. The Honourable Member for Louis Saint-Laurent. Mr. Speaker, the publication shows a $1 billion surplus and the most recent one, a $9 billion deficit. That's what the officials are stating in the department. If the minister doesn't agree with these officials, does he agree with the Prime Minister that stating that a $30 billion deficit would be a possibility? Can the Minister of Finance promise us that the deficit won't be even worse than what they had anticipated? The Honourable Minister.
Monsieur le Président,
Mr. Speaker, as I've said several times in this House, at the end of the year, revenues are lower and expenditures are higher. That's normally the situation. It was a situation in previous years as well. It's now more difficult because of the measures put in place by the previous government. That's a situation we're facing. That's what they left us with. It was a deficit. And that's why we will be investing now to improve our economic growth.
Mr. Speaker, I don't think Canadians realize that Sunny Ways would be quite this expensive. Here are the facts. The Conservatives left the Liberals a surplus. Canadians were enjoying the lowest tax burden in 50 years. And in 1 month, the Liberals spent a $10 billion deficit obliterating the Conservative surplus. Why has the Finance Minister been so reckless with the tax dollars of hardworking Canadians?
Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, I would invite the member opposite to actually look at the fiscal monitor. What they would find is that the government before us left us with a deficit. Revenues are lower, expenses are higher in the last month. The only difference is this year the revenues are even lower in March as a result of the measures put in place by the previous government. That's the situation we face. That's why Canadians decided they wanted a new path, a path towards growth, a path towards making investments, a path towards a better future for themselves and their families. We're going to do that, Mr. Speaker, for Canadians.
I know the member for Abbotsford is anxious to take part in the debate, but we should wait for his turn. Now the member for Foothills.
I could just give him my question, Mr. Speaker. He seems like he's ready. Mr. Speaker, I know the Liberals are in denial about the Conservatives and the surplus, but it is there. That is the facts. It is clear they don't understand economics and they don't understand the consequences of deficit spending. They can deny it all they want. They talk about decisions made by science. Well, here are the facts. We left you a surplus, and the spending habits of this finance minister are simply out of control. Why is this finance minister doing what every other Canadian knows is dangerous? Running your budget on a credit card. When will this his spending is out of control?
Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, we understand very clearly what inappropriate spending can do because we are witness to what happened in the last government. Tens of billions of dollars of spending with the lowest growth rate in decades. So we are faced with that now, as well as a deficit left us by the previous government because of the low growth that they left us with. Mr. Speaker, something needed to be done, and Canadians understood that. That's why they chose a new government that was going to be optimistic and invest in the future of our country, a new government that's going to bring in a new era of growth so that we can turn the page on this difficult time.
The Honourable Member for Musqueam-Nejet-Témiscouata-Les-Basques. After having promised to keep tax cuts for small businesses during the election, the Liberals preferred to break their promise, and they will cancel them as part of their omnibus bill. $2.2 billion that the government is going to be taking from these companies that generate the most jobs in the country. Fortunately, they can still honour their commitment that they made during the election campaign by voting in favour of the NDP amendment, which aims to restore these tax cuts for small and medium-sized businesses. Will the Liberals join forces with us to help the best job creators in the country, and will they vote in favour of our amendment?
Now the member of Small Business and Tourism.
Thank you for the question, Mr. Speaker. And small businesses are the backbone of the economy. Just this morning, I was at Ottawa 2017, where I was to the tourism industry because we know that that's where growth can occur. We have to support the tourism industry. We have to support small businesses as well. And that's why we're investing in the middle class. Middle-class Canadians are small business owners. They are our customers. By putting money in the pockets of Canadians, they can support our small business owners. They can support the products and services that they offer because small business owners would prefer increased revenues over decreased taxes any day. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for London Fanshawe.
Mr. Speaker, this Liberal government promised during the election to restore Canada's historic relationship with our veterans. First and foremost was the pledge to end the Conservative court battle that would deprive veterans of the benefits they deserve. The Liberals promised to honour those benefits, but now we learn they're backtracking and again taking our veterans to court. Why are the Liberals punishing our veterans and forcing them to fight in court for the benefits they deserve and have earned in service to Canada?
Honourable Minister of Veterans Affairs.
Mr. Speaker, I thank the member for her question. As she's aware, this lawsuit emerged under the previous government. I can say that this government is moving forward on treating veterans with care, compassion, and respect. We're moving forward on an aggressive mandate that is ensuring financial benefits are to them. We saw that in budget in 2016 with a $5.6 billion investment that will improve the lives of our most disabled veterans and ensure financial security for them and their families. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
For Selkirk Interlake Eastman.
Mr. Speaker, over the weekend, General Jonathan Vance acknowledged that today's conflicts do not have the characteristics of those in the past. The Chief of Defence Staff recognized that one of Canada's signature peacekeeping missions in the Sinai is growing more violent. As well, Canadian troops are now on the front lines in the fight against ISIS in Iraq. But the Prime Minister says that we're only training Iraqi troops. Why is the Prime Minister misinforming Canadians about these dangerous combat missions?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of National Defence.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the Honourable Member for his question. I think General Vance has actually done us all a service to point out that the conflicts that will be going on now and in the future will largely be conflicts which will not get easily resolved. Hence the important emphasis on assisting, training, and advising and intelligence. And that is what the Minister and the Chief of Defence Staff have been emphasizing as they engage further in Iraq.
Selkirk Interlake Eastman.
And Mr. Speaker, reporters from Iraq noted that Canadian troops are on the front line in preparation for the coalition's efforts to take the city of Fallujah. As Romeo Dallaire said, Canada's soldiers are first and foremost combat specialists. The CBC acknowledged that Conservatives were on the right track. They reported, as for ISIS, it was the Liberals and the NDP who were out of step with public opinion. Why is the Prime Minister misleading Canadians by saying this is not a combat mission, but actually has our troops in combat against ISIS?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Mr. Speaker, I would, in response to the Honourable Member's question, only quote the Chief of Defence Staff, who said that we are in a state of armed conflict with a non-state actor. There is no doubt that this is a mission of significance. This is a mission where there will be danger, and our coalition partners have welcomed us into the theatre, and we are providing really useful and effective services to our coalition partners. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg-Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, by taking our F-18s out of Iraq to respect the election campaign, the Liberals are risking our soldiers' lives. We're on the front line near Fallujah. U.S. Army officers have confirmed that our special forces are on the front lines. Inevitably, our troops are in the line of enemy fire. Can the Minister tell us how you go from training to combat, and if, yes or no, our troops are putting their lives in danger on the front lines? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
The goal of this mission is to achieve long-term success through self-sustainable security. Hence, we are in a mission that advises, trains, and assists, and provides intelligence. That is the way forward, Mr. Speaker, in order to be able to minimize the unwanted consequences of this conflict. So, Mr. Speaker, as we go forward, I would encourage the Honourable Member to support our troops as we engage in this conflict with a non-state actor.
The Honourable Member for Scarborough-Rouge Park.
Mr. Speaker, 2 weeks ago, torrential downpours and landslides in Sri Lanka created a humanitarian crisis across the island. Over 600,000 people have been displaced from their homes, and nearly 250,000 people are still stuck in emergency evacuation centers. Mr. Speaker, the crisis is ongoing, and individual victims need our help. Over 100 people are still reported missing, and 100 more have been confirmed dead. Could the Honourable Minister of International Development advise the House of Canada's efforts to assist these victims?
Minister of International Development.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for Scarborough-Rouge Park for his question. Allow me to start by saying that I want to offer our sincerest condolences to the people of Sri Lanka and express Canada's solidarity. Our government stepped in quickly with a $1,000 amount, which enabled Oxfam and the Red Cross to provide household items, protection for some 50 families and other items. We will continue to monitor the situation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Over the past week, I've heard from many Canadians who strongly support our Free the Beer campaign. Because if we can free the beer by removing internal trade barriers, we can also create jobs and create growth in our economy without adding debt. Mr. Speaker, will the government raise the Como decision to the Supreme Court and free the beer?
The Honourable Minister of Economic Development.
Mr. Speaker, I do share the enthusiasm by the member opposite, and I do welcome expanded opportunities for alcohol between provinces and territories. And this is a matter that I've raised with my provincial and territorial counterparts as we negotiate on a comprehensive agreement on internal trade. This is a broad agreement where we want to, of course, reduce barriers and harmonize regulations. And it's about growing the economy and making sure that we benefit not only businesses but consumers. And I look forward to working with the member opposite on this file.
The Honourable Member for Jonquière. Instead of respecting their commitment and restoring home mail delivery, the Liberals instead decided to set up a committee to examine the matter. The problem is that we don't know anything about this committee or the procedures. We learned that the deadline for tabling a brief was June 23rd for groups and sometime in July for citizens. As of last Friday, there was nothing announced anywhere. It took the NDP denouncing the situation for the date to appear magically on the website. Is that the kind of transparency that the government had promised us?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary for Public Services and Procurement.
Mr. Speaker, the National Union stated that these measures were good for workers at Canada Post and that the government had an historic opportunity to take these steps. Management at Canada Post had stated that they will review postal services and it's eager to hold these national discussions. Mr. Speaker, the union supports this review. Management does as well. Canadian people from from sea to sea do as well.
Mr. Speaker, my riding in the Northwest Territories has significant infrastructure needs and faces particular challenges because of our northern climate. In April, experts from Canada and the United States gathered in Inuvik to discuss new techniques for infrastructure projects at the International Symposium of Permafrost Scientists. One of the projects they discussed was the Inuvik to Tuktoyaktuk Highway that has just finished its third construction season. Could the Minister of Infrastructure please update the House on the progress of this important project?
Great question. Honourable Minister of Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank my colleague, the Honourable Member for Northwest Territories, for his tireless efforts on behalf of northern communities. Our government has made unprecedented commitments to support public infrastructure, and the Inuvik to Tuktoyaktuk Highway will help connect people, create jobs, and support economic development in the north. We are very encouraged by the progress of this project, and I look forward to touring this exciting project with my colleague into the future.
The member for Calgary Forest Lawn.
Monsieur le Président, the Liberals are placed on international development. The Minister has launched yet another review and another consultation to determine how Canada can refocus its international assistance. On one hand, the Liberals say they are reviewing the system, but at the same time, the Minister keeps promising Canadians money at the international forums. Does this not make the Liberals' consultative process a big sham?
Yes. Ministre du Développement International.
The Honourable Minister. Mr. Speaker, I was very proud to participate in three summits on women's condition, status of women, on health, and one other. My colleague opposite will not be surprised to learn that we committed, as in the past, to contributing to the central emergency funds so that Canada is always among the first responders when a disaster occurs, and to respond to the annual call from large organizations for humanitarian assistance. The Honourable Member for Mirabel. Mr. Speaker, today, dairy producers started a 3-day tractor journey from Quebec to Ottawa to remind the government of its election commitments. They are crossing Quebec to protest the imports of dye-filtered milk that deprives them of thousands of dollars each week. They're crisscrossing Quebec to remind the government of the compensation promised when agreements like the TTP and CETA were negotiated. What are the 40 Liberal MPs waiting for to throw their weight behind Quebec dairy producers? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Mr. Speaker, this government is a government that put in place supply management, and we are the government that will defend it. As we promised, we will meet with industry sectors across the country. In recent weeks, we have listened to them. We've had several discussions, very productive discussions with them. We are working on developing a sustainable strategy, a long-term strategy for the entire sector. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, member for Manicouagan. Mr. Speaker, on softwood lumber, Quebec has reaffirmed last week that our forestry regime is untouchable under NAFTA, and absolutely nothing would justify Ottawa imposing quotas or tariffs on our exports. However, to save BC, the government's currently negotiating a protectionist agreement with the U.S. That even if it means killing our forestry regions in Quebec along the way. Can the Minister of Trade tell us clearly that, or tell Americans clearly that our softwood lumber is not subsidized and will never accept a protectionist agreement unless Quebec is exempt? The Honourable Minister. I thank the member for the question. Our government acknowledges the importance of the forestry sector for Quebec and Canada. I met with representatives of, or I will in fact meet with industry representatives next Monday. I spoke with Michael Froman about the issue last week and at APEC. We are looking for a good agreement for Canada and for Quebec. The Honourable Member for Repentigny. Mr. Speaker, the Minister responsible for families, children and social development stated that he wanted to make registration for the GIS automatic for seniors by 2018. Since this is something that seniors and the Bloc Québécois have been long calling for, we can only applaud this. But the federal government will have taken a quarter century to do it. Since the people affected have already waited too long, will the minister commit to making registration for GIS automatic by the time the next tax returns come through? The Honourable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This gives me an opportunity to also thank the member opposite for all of the work she's done in recent years and on this very important issue for drawing it to the attention of the government. In addition to significantly increasing the GIS, bringing the eligibility back down and investing in housing for seniors, we today are in fact in line for putting that in place, the automatic registration by 2018.
I would like to draw to the attention of honourable members the presence in the gallery of His Excellency Milan Stech, President of the Senate of the Czech Republic. Tabling of documents. The Honourable Government House Leader rising on a point of order. Order.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to inform the House that Thursday, June 2nd, will be a designated day.
A
point of order, the Honourable Member for Louis Saint Laurent.
Minister of Finance said, quote, facts are the facts. So we do agree with that, and so this is why je demande le consentement de la.
This is why I would ask the consent of the House to introduce the following document. That is the budgetary surplus of $1 billion, the report on that. Does the honourable member have the unanimous consent of the House to table this document? No, there is no unanimous consent. Tabling of documents. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary to the Government House Leader.
Take a second.
Yes. Thank you.
No, just wait.